my friends, it's Marla here back with another video. Here I'm sharing the new Crafty Meraki Crimson Charm product suite. I have the Press-Tacular plate, which is absolutely beautiful. It's a beautiful flower with leaves and berries. And then I have the outline die. The coordinating stencil has, I believe, 8 different stencils that layer together beautifully. They're numbered in the upper right-hand corner, and they are so easy to align. Now, this particular product suite does not come with a stamp set. You certainly could use the stencil and not this Press-Tacular plate. The Press-Tacular plate is going to give you a beautiful letterpress image onto your paper. In this case, I'm using obviously the BetterPress system and the watercolor paper that comes with it. This is my first time trying to do letterpress, and I watched a few videos and thought I knew what I was doing, but I second guessed myself on a lot of the work that I do in this video. So for this first one, you'll notice that I left the plastic on the BetterPress plate, and then I also left it on the chase, and that is so that the ink doesn't stain. I do end up taking that plastic off the bottom, right this bottom area with the gray magnetic platform, and I just add the plastic around the gray plate instead of the whole system. It worked out a lot better. And again, the reason for this is just to prevent any staining. It makes for easy cleanup. And so far, it's been working beautifully for me. So I used some mulberry ink. This is BetterPress ink. I thought I would try that for my first project. I wasn't sure which side of the door I should have been using. So again, this is me learning for the first time. I don't know if there is a right or wrong way, but I ended up putting it on this side and second guessing the side that I had it on, and it was the tape got in the way of. I should have put the bottom left-hand tape on the bottom right. I should have like reversed where I have the tape on each of the corners. I'm inking that up again with that mulberry ink, and then I'm just kind of twisting and turning the ink pad as I do that and lightly tapping it on so that I'm able to get a beautiful image. But you can see right here that the tape got in the way. So I am going to go to the next corner. I want the image to be corner to corner, and I'm just kind of turning the Press-Tacular plate to change the orientation of where that flower is coming in. And you're going to see that I do get some overlapping. And I was anticipating that because the leaves do come down quite far. And so I wasn't worried about that because I was going to use my sentiment later on to cover up those areas. I have the Vagabond, and for the Vagabond, I use my metal shim to run this through that particular machine. I don't have a spellbinder system, and you can see that I got beautiful impressions. So I'm going to remove this tape, and then here I don't know what I was thinking. I pulled out my Copic markers. Now, this isn't technically Copic friendly paper. It's not meant for Copic coloring, but great for watercoloring. But it ended up working out. I ended up getting a decent blend with this, but because I used that mulberry ink and not a black ink or another darker color, the impression is there, but the outline from the ink ends up getting lost as a result. So it did turn out beautiful, and I really like this bold purple. I will link all of the colors that I used in the description box below. I started out with my darkest BV marker and then blended it out with my mid-tone and then my light, and then went over it a second time. And again, you're going to see that I don't have any problems blending, but I really do want to try the watercolor technique with this paper because I've heard wonderful things about the paper for watercoloring. So I'm going to finish up Copic coloring these flowers, and then I'll come in and start Copic coloring the leaves. I do end up going with an olive tone, so I tried to go with some rich jewel tones for this particular card. And again, I'll just follow the same recipe, I'll start with my darkest color, blend out my mid-tone, and then finally come in with the highlight with my lightest color, and then I typically go over it a second time. So these BetterPress plates, I have to tell you, I did not try any foiling this time around, but they do work beautifully. Some of the new products from the Crafty Meraki release have stamps. So if you are not a foiler or you are not a person who owns a better press, then you do have other options. So that's one of the nice things about this new Genesis collection that Crafty Meraki has released. There are multiple options. This, I believe, is the only set that does not come with a stamp. So just keep that in mind, but you certainly can use the stencils on their own and then use the coordinating die to create some absolutely beautiful cards. And I did want to apologize. This video should have went up yesterday. I, as you can hear by my voice, have been really sick with a cough, like a bronchial cough and cold. And so I wasn't able to get the voiceover done. And this isn't the most beautiful voiceover, and I do apologize for that, but I did want to get this up because I wanted to share just how beautiful these new products are. If you are a subscriber to my channel, I will be sharing some videos over on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel, and I am going to link that in the description box below. And I hope that you'll go over there and subscribe and follow me over there. My first video is going up tomorrow, which is Wednesday. I believe that's going to be the 15th. So you can catch one more video over there with on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. And again, it'll be linked in the description box below. Here's that Merlot that I went with for the berries. It doesn't look like it would be such a dark color, but it actually is with these RV markers. And I just thought that it really complemented that Merlot color, actually complemented the purple from the that I used on the flowers beautifully. So we're just going to finish this up, and then I'm going to quickly build my card. I end up bringing in a Merlot or wine colored piece of cardstock, and it's going to be cut to 4¼ by 5½ inches. And then I will trim this down to 4 by 5 inches. When I do the trimming, I trim off one side. Two different sides of the panel. If you want to do it a little bit more evenly, then you can take an 1/8 inch off all four sides, but I chose just to take a 1/4 inch off of two sides of this panel. Now, my second card is going to be using the stencils and the press plate. I wanted to try and see what other inks would work with this, and I ended up using a Pink Fresh Studio ink, which was which worked beautifully. I didn't have any problems with any skipping. I've watched a couple videos where people had issues with skipping with their ink when they're running it through their die cutting machine. And whatever sandwich or the sandwich I chose for my machine, it actually presses beautifully, and that Pink Fresh Studio ink worked fabulous with this Press-Tacular plate. So here's a die set. This is called Just a Note. It has the shadow outline, and you can see where I have that crossover between the two flowers, and this is going to cover it up beautifully. So I'll cut the shadow out of kind of an olive green cardstock, and then it has the outline for the letters, so you can cut out the outline of the letters, and then you can cut out the letters themselves. I'm going to use this a little differently. I'm going to bring in my hot foil system, but first I'm going to run this through using my Anagraphin die cutting machine. This is my favorite die cutting machine to use on my desk. All right, so there's our shadow. We're going to set this aside, and now I have the die. This die actually will cut out the words, and so you want to make sure that the cut side is facing up. I've put some gold foil over top of that with the pretty side facing down. When you're hot foiling, you want the pretty side down. And then I set my timer for 30 seconds. I'm going to add a piece of cardstock over the top, add the top plate, and then I'll take this over to my Gemini Junior and I am going to run it through my machine, and you'll see that I get this beautiful outline. Now, if I were to use it as a die, it would have cut out the words or the letters, and then I would have placed them inside this outline right here. But instead, I'm just going to use this outline die, and I'm going to cut out my foiled sentiment. So I did this three times. I wanted to make sure that I had a nice sturdy sentiment. I do like dimension on my cards. And so I'm just going to use my wet glue to layer these up. And once I get everything layered together, I am going to add it to that shadow background. So here we go. We're just going to go ahead and adhere this. You can see how easy it is to align. I have to really admit that I am impressed with all of the products that I've used. I will have a video coming out shortly where I use some of Crafty Meraki's other die plates. They're die cutting plates for hot foiling, and everything that I have used either with the BetterPress or with the hot foil system has come out perfect. I have not had to redo anything. So that's something that really impressed me with the use of these beautiful products. We do have an Instagram hop that's going on. I will have my Instagram channel or site linked in the description box below. Crafty Meraki is generously giving away a $50 gift card. So if you're interested in participating in that, then you certainly can do so. All right, so here's where I have that wine cardstock. I want to make sure that I cut down this panel. So I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer and, as I mentioned, cut off a 1/4 inch on 2 different sides. And then I'm going to add some foam tape to the back of this. I like adding that extra dimension to the panels. I love layering up cards and using dimensional foam tape to get different heights. So here I have some gold thread from my stash. I'm going to use a small piece of tape and I'm going to wrap this around 4 times. I was going to use another piece of tape to adhere the string to the back, and then I realized that I did have the foam tape back there, so I could just go ahead and remove the release paper, rewrap it around, and then use the sticky part of that foam tape to add the string. I'm going to remove this final panel. I did realign that thread to make sure that it was evenly spread apart. And then I'll add my sentiment, and then off camera later on, I do add this to an A2 top folding card base. So this is card number 1. And like I said, this was my very first experiment. I didn't read any of the instructions. I went off of the videos that I watched and tried to remember. So it just goes to show you that these aren't hard products to use. So here I've used the Coral Reef ink, as we talked about, from Pink Fresh Studio. You can see what a beautiful impression I was able to get with that. And this is going to, again, give me a tone on tone. So I'm not going to have an outline for the flower, but I am going to have that beautiful etched impression in the cardstock. Now I am going to use the coordinating die this time. I want to mention that for whatever reason, I think I was just so excited to use all of these products that my crafty brain wasn't thinking properly. Typically when I do stenciling, I like to bring in an Altenew stamp wheel mat, and it holds my paper and the stencils beautifully so I don't get any shifting. I got a little bit of shifting, and that was user error, not necessarily the stencils. As I mentioned, these stencils come in 8 different layers, so you are going to be able to get dimension with the beautiful stencils, and you don't need to use them with the press plate, but it does give it that extra something something. So the first color again was Coral Reef. Now I believe this is passion fruit. And if you wanted to, if you only had like one color of ink, what you want to do is go very light-handed on the first layer. You want that to be your lightest layer. Your second layer is going to be more of a medium pressure, and then your third layer is going to be your darkest. So that's how you're going to get the dimension with these stencils. Instead, I'm using multiple colors of ink. So for my third layer, I used Berrylicious, and then we'll start with the next 3 layers, which are going to be the leaves. I'll start with my lightest color, which is going to be the fresh pear. And then we'll do the second layer in grassy knoll and the third layer in key lime. So this goes really quick and easy. You can see the stencils aren't super large because they're for just this bloom. You're not doing an entire background, and they are super easy to align. There is like no guesswork on where these stencils should go. The numbering system, just really helps if you're unsure of which is your darkest layer and which is your medium tone. I think the light layer is pretty obvious because it's going to be the most open. The last layer is going to be the most detailed. And then we'll finish off with the berries. For the berries, I'm going to use Ballet Slipper. And this ended up being just once the coral reef kind of died back, this ended up being pretty close in color, which surprised me. I've used these inks a lot and I've never really noticed that, but it just didn't stand out as much. So what I ended up doing was bringing in some art glitter, and I'm going to just add some wet glue over the top of all of the berries. And then I have this pink glitter, which is, I think it's called Baby's Breath. And I'm just going to add that over the top of it. And then I set it aside to dry. And that really does help those berries stand out just a little bit more because it was just a little too close in color for me. So I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. You can see that the outline die just lines up perfectly. There's not a lot of white space, which I really appreciate. And you have to be careful with this paper because this paper will tear easily because it is watercolor paper. So for the most part, what you're going to want to do is maybe like take the tape and put it on your clothes just to get some of that stickiness off of it. So here's that glue and the glitter that I've added to the berries just to give it a little bit more dimension. It'll give a little bit of dimension because I was pretty generous with the wet glue. And then now we have the Marrakesh mosaic die, and I have a piece of I don't know, I guess it's like a corally cardstock. I'm going to use that same thread and I'm going to wrap it around the panel. And then I'll use a little bit of glue to just get it in place. And then I'll use my precision glue press to add some wet glue to the panel strategically, just kind of going at a diagonal across the panel. And we'll add this to an A2 top folding card base. For my sentiment, you saw that I did use the foil press with my first sentiment. And what I did for this one is I took the Pink Fresh Studio. There is a solid foiling plate that you can use, and you can use the negative from your hot foil. And so that's what I did is I just used that solid plate. I heat mine up for a minute to make sure, because it's a big plate, to make sure that it gets nice and hot. Once I heated that up, I added a piece of paper, or I added my foil. Um, that I had used with the previous image. I did it pretty side down onto that solid Pink Fresh Studio plate, put a piece of paper over the top of it, and I ran it through my Gemini Junior, and then I used the die to cut out the sentiment. For this one, I chose not to use the shadow die, and I'm just going to place this onto my panel strategically to fill in some of that blank space. I did, as you saw, tie a bow to add to the string that I wrapped around, and I used my reverse tweezers to hold that in place. I did not add any dimensional tape to my flower. I just adhered it directly to the card panel. And then for the word just, I'm going to slightly overlap the flower. And then the rest of these pieces are going to be adhered down, and that will finish my card for today. I will have all of the products that I used in the description box below. I'd encourage you to check out the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. Make sure that you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos over there. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that this inspired you to, if you have a BetterPress system that you haven't pulled out, that you would pull it out and give it a try. I really think it's easy and addicting. Here's a close-up look at both of my cards. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for watching.